Imagine the human species 10,000 years from now and the differences that we might see. I've done so in a story I call Forgive Us Our Trespasses. It's in Fantasy Crow 3, The Watchers of the Final Flights, a link to which is in the description below this video. What I imagine is a small community or a network of small communities around the globe, and the closest thing that I've come to think of it as is the Ubuntu movement started by South African Michael Tellinger. The technology, if there is technology, is invisibly incorporated into the world around you. You really don't think about tech in that community. It's just a small, it's where people live very peacefully and at quite a high level of spiritual development. And that's what's important to this story, because people have developed powers. And we not only have the powers to communicate, we have the powers to go to other dimensions. Relationships seem to be pretty amorphous. They're maybe polyamorous, and that may have been a more puerile desire of the young man I was when I wrote that story than any kind of spiritual insight, but it makes sense in a spiritually development civilization. But all things really related to spiritual adventure are allowed in this world. And there's only one directive, really. It comes from higher forces guiding civilization. We never find out too much about them, but they have only one restriction. It's sort of like the apple that God forbid Eve to eat in the Garden of Eden, and it concerned an interaction in a higher dimension. And I'm thinking of it again. Since I wrote this story, I've learned about higher dimensions that some spiritualists talk about, a 10th dimension perhaps, where geometrical shapes form the major landscape, and we have the power to control these shapes, rearrange them, etc. And the protagonist of this story is a young man who's constantly testing the limits of what is possible and allowable in this civilization. He's very curious, and he and his love interest have developed a game that they like to play in this dimension. And the only limitation is that they are not allowed to go in this certain area of that dimension. And almost as by accident, playing the game, he is thrust into this area of preclusion. And the story revolves around what happens to him. And suffice it to say that violation of that sole preclusion of human activity had serious repercussions on his spiritual existence. So I have some related links below. I think the story is interesting. I hope you find it is too. It's called Forgive Us Our Trespasses, and it's in Fantasy Crow 3, Watchers of the Final Flights. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you again soon.